Thank you for joining this tutorial on how to make this little modular slipper. This little slipper can be made to fit any size foot using any size yarn, using any size hook. We're going to go over the schematic of how this is done, and then I'm going to show you how to stitch up a little tiny version. The first thing that you're going to need to do is create a schematic that looks something like this. I'm hoping to have this one available for you to download, so stay tuned for that. If it doesn't happen to be available when you are watching this, stay tuned, because at some point it will be available. But in the meantime, as you can see, it's a pretty simple little schematic, and I think once you understand the dimensions, you will understand how to make this slipper. Let's see if I can set this up so that you can see what we're going to be doing. You're going to need to get a measurement of the foot that you're working with, from the big toe, the tip of the big toe, to all the way back to the outside edge of the heel. In this example, we are using a 4-inch measurement. Okay, so 4 inches here. I think that's what this is. Let's double check. What did I do here? Yes, I did 4 inches, because what I did is I decided we were making a 3.5 inch slipper, and I want a 1/2 inch of ease for this little slipper. So we're making a 4-inch base square. That's the first measurement that you need. That's measurement A. Okay, so measurement A is the tip of the toe to the back of the heel, plus however much ease you want for your slipper. Measurement B is going to be half of that amount. In this case, we had 4 inches here, so now measurement B is going to be 2 inches, and that's all of the measurement that you need, A and B. So let's get started. Now that we've got measurements A and B figured out, let's get started, shall we? All right, we're going to start here at the small square. This is going to be worked all in one piece. You have the large square in the center of for the center of the foot. You have the small square. This is going to be the toe piece, and then you have this triangle, and that's going to be the heel. We're going to start here, but we are not working from a true point to a true point. You know, where you would start with 1 and increase and then decrease back down to 1. We're actually going to start with 3, increase out, and return to 3. So how we will do that is we're going to chain 2. We're going to insert our hook in the first chain, and we're going to make 3 single crochets. 1, whoops, that can be a little fiddly to get started. 1, 2, 3. Then we're going to chain 2 and turn. We are going to work in the second chain from the hook. We're going to make 1 single crochet. We're going to single crochet in the 3 single crochets that we made. Oops, and I like to get under both loops when I do that. And then we are going to make 1 single crochet in the bump from the turning chain, the previous turning chain. So now you have 5 single crochets. And then we're going to stop. In this case, we're going to stop because we know that we're going for a measurement of 2 inches, and we want this to be 2 inches across. So let's measure that right now. Okay, we are about we're about 1 and 7/6 what do we got? 4, 5/8. We're at 1 and 5/8. So we're going to make one more row. So we're going to chain 2 and turn. And in the second chain from the hook, we're going to make 1 single crochet. And then we're going to single crochet across the row, all the way across the row to the very end. And then we are going to put the last single crochet in that bump from the turn to increase 1 at each end of the row. Now let's measure that. See where we're at. Okay, we're at close enough to 2 inches. Now we're going to do one row where there's no increases at all. So we chain 1 and single crochet across the row. All the way across. I think it's probably a good idea at this point to count the number of stitches that it took to get to that size. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we have 7 stitches to get to the width that we want. Now we are going to reverse the process, and we are going to decrease until we get back to 3. So we're going to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to single crochet 2 together. And to do that, we're going to insert our hook into our stitch and pull up 1 loop. Then we're going to insert our hook into the next stitch and pull up 1 loop. And we're going to yarn over and pull all 3 together. Then we will work across in a single crochet until we get to the last 2, 1, 2, and we're going to decrease again. So we'll insert our hook and draw up a loop and go into the next stitch and draw up a loop, yarn over and pull through 3. We'll chain 1 and turn, and we'll decrease again, pull up 1 loop and into the next stitch and pull up a loop, pull through all 3. And then there's only 5 here, so we're going to make a single crochet in the next one, and then we'll decrease on these last 2. Here we go. Now we are back to 3 stitches. Now we are going to chain 1, and we will do 0 increases here. We're just going to single crochet across this row. And now we're ready to begin making our larger square. So we're going to chain 2 because we need to start our increases again. And we'll make a single crochet in the second chain from the hook and in the 3 stitches across the row and 1 in that turning bump. And then we're going to chain 2 and make our additional here. So we are increasing 1 stitch at the beginning and end of each row. So we're increasing by 2 each row. And there's that little turning bump right there. That can be a little tight to get into sometimes, but that's okay. And we want to continue in this manner until we have twice the number of stitches as we had for our small square. And if you recall, there were 7 in the middle. Of course, this is going to be an odd number, so we will have to make some decisions if we are stopping at 13 or are we going to 15. We'll measure that when we get up and get close, and we'll measure the width of our piece to see what that looks like. There we go. It's also helpful to have keep track of those number of stitches, so that way you can make both slippers with the same number of stitches. So let's measure this. This should be about 4 inches, and we are about almost exactly 4 inches. So we're going to stop at 13. You see what happens when we fold this up here, and you see how much shorter this is. So if you recall though, here we had one row in the middle that had no increases, and that's what we need to do up here as well. So we will chain 1, turn, and single crochet across the row. Just straight, without any increases or decreases. And throw off some more yarn again. Okay, and then we're going to chain 1. Now we need to start decreasing again so we can complete our square. So we're going to decrease, pull up 1 loop, pull up 1 in the next. We're single crocheting 2 together. Then we're going to work across the row to the last 2 stitches. Decrease, and now we're back to 3 again. And again, we're going to chain 1 and turn and do 1 row with the 0 increases and 0 decreases. People will sometimes ask me, can you do this pattern in double crochet or some other kind of stitch? And for the most part, I don't know that I recommend that a lot, just simply because I prefer the density of the single crochet, and because the row height is small, you have a lot more control over creating your square. So this is a version of what is often recognized as the granny square slipper. So if you were making little granny squares where you start from the center and work out until you have your squares, and then you have this one, and then this would be 4 of these, and you could do that. All right, now we're going to make our triangle up here. So our triangle, we're going to increase until we get to the width of the big square. So, and we know that we stopped at 13. So we're going to chain 2. This one, your numbers are going to be different. They're going to be based on the yarn that you are using. They're going to be based on your gauge and your hook and the size of the foot that you are working on. So don't pay too much attention to my numbers. I'm just using them as a reminder that we need to keep track of the numbers that we're creating here. You can make these as big or as little as you like. You can make them thick and squishy. You could make a second square for the bottom, or even just a narrow strip down the center of the square where you can add some extra padding to the sole if you wanted to do that. And get that last bump on the end. And let's count and see where we're at. I think we're at 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. All right, we're going to do one more increased row. I appreciate you joining me for these tutorials. They're simple, they're kind of low tech, but they're basic, and hopefully that's a good learning tool for you. Your comments below are always helpful, and I read every one of them and reply on things that I think I should reply on. And then our last increase, and we're going to chain 1 and we're going to turn again. But this is the time. Now we've got the right number of stitches. Now we're going to go across with no increases. I encourage you to subscribe to this channel if you find these tutorials helpful. That helps me to know how to serve you. Right, there's our last stitch for there. Now we're going to give us, you can cut a long tail and pull it through, and then you can use this to weave, to sew your seams together. I'm not going to for this sample piece, but I like to do this without having a knot, so I'm just going to pull that all the way through, and then when I go to weave in my ends, I'm going to make sure that I I need to make sure that I protect this loop from coming undone. So I will come under there all the way down into this loop right here when I weave in, just to make sure that I don't have a hard knot, but I'm also not going to let that loop get away from me. All right, I'll come back here in just a moment and I will show you how to sew this mystery together, because believe it or not, that is going to be a slipper. Now that your piece is finished, well, let's go ahead and take a look at how we assemble that. We are going to thread our darning needle. You can cut down on some of the tail weaving if you just make sure that you give yourself a really long tail when you finish off, and then you can just sew with that piece, which is very handy sometimes. So this is how the piece goes. We have our small square, our large square, and our triangle. We're going to fold the small square up, and we're going to fold, let me get this up here a little bit, and then we're going to fold this corner up to here this way, and we're going to sew that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with my yarn when you look here, I'm going to start with my yarn in there because I folded this up. There will be an end to weave in, and that's okay. I'm going to make sure that my needle goes, if you look really carefully here, I'm going to make sure that my needle pierces through the middle of the strands of yarn. This helps to really just cinch the stitches in. There's a couple of different ways that you can do this too. You can, oops, I pulled it right through. That was kind of silly. Here we go. You can crochet this together and have a ridge seam as you go, which is totally fine. Make sure we leave enough of a tail here to weave in. And we are going to just whip stitch along this edge right here. You could crochet this together, you could hem stitch it together, whatever is your preferred method. It's going to depend on the yarn that you're using. It's going to depend on whether or not you're having the seam on the exterior of the slipper, if you're using contrasting yarns and things of that nature. So get that lined up there. There we go. And we'll just we're going to keep stitching this till we get right up there to the corner. All right, and there's the corner of the little square, and it's in the middle of the side of the big square. Now we're going to open this up a little bit and turn it and stitch the other side of the small square against the rest of the same side of the big square. Once we have this edge done, we'll lay this down and show you what that looks like. Some yarns, maybe if you're using a great big chunky chenille yarn because it's soft and fluffy, you're gonna whip stitch this, but it's going to happen in a little bit different way, because since it's not twisted, you can't pierce through the fiber, the core of the strand of yarn. Okay, now we're up to the other corner, so let's lay this down again and take a look at what we've got there. There we go. So here is our small square That's where we started, right there. There's the tip of the small square. And we worked it this way before we started the big square. So here you go. And you can see right here where the larger square is folded up and wrapped around, coming this way. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to, let's see, you can do this a couple of ways. You can take it like this, and here's one long side of the large square, and then the long side, and then the edge of the triangle, and you can overlap them and then stitch along that seam, and then you can, when you get to here, you can weave it in and then go back the other way, which is what we're going to do. The other thing that you could do, and again, this depends on your construction style and the type of yarn, but you can finish off right here, come back to the toe, and work up this way. Yeah, so I think what we're going to do, you can see that the shape of this is starting to come together. I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and do the triangle. So we're going to take the triangle and we're going to bring it up here, and we're going to take this point right in line with that point right there, and then we're going to stitch this seam right here. At the fold, and you can see how we're coming along. That's kind of what it looks like right now. It looks kind of like who is the guy on the FTD Flora with the winged feet? I don't remember him, what his name is, but we're going to actually, instead of cutting this, we're just going to actually just kind of, just like weaving in ends, we're just going to feed this yarn through the fold of the heel. Not tight, but just so that way we don't have to cut and make a knot. Now we're on the other side of the triangle, and we're going to line up this edge of the triangle with this edge of the large square. Can you see where that is there? So we're going to line those two edges up, and we're going to continue our whip stitching. Now we have the entire heel stitched into place. Now we need to finish fastening this toe in place. We're going to take this side of the small square along half of the length of the larger square, and this half of the larger square lines up with this edge of the small square. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this edge where we left off from the edge of the triangle over to the other edge of the triangle. See if I turn it this way, maybe you can see. So we're going to bring these two edges together. Now we're not going to stitch into the stitches of the triangle. We want to make sure that we are stitching into the edges of the small square. And we're going to continue that whip stitching process. Keeping these pieces even, I want to make sure that all of the ease is going into the right places and keeping it so there's no puckering or anything like that. So we're going to just continue this stitching all along until we get back down to the toe. Okay, and all we have to do is weave in the ends and turn it right side out, and there is our basic bootie shape. It's our bottom. Just need to weave in all of our little tails, and there's the opening right here. And because we didn't stitch from any of the pieces of the triangle together, we have a nice opening. And after we weave in these ends, I'll show you how to some different cuff things that we can do with that to finish it off. Okay, now we have all of our ends woven in, and depending on how your seam is and what you were intending, you might want to turn it inside out or right side out, whichever way is your preference. And now what we're going to do is talk about some different ways that you could finish off this edge, this opening for the foot. You certainly could just leave it if you wanted to. You could weave a little cord or ribbon in around here, but what we're going to do is add some rows here. We'll get our slip knot on our hook, and we are going to come right over here to the beginning and of this, and this is going to be our center front, and there's a bit of a stitch right there for the center front, and we are going to leave that one for the moment and come in, wriggle into this next one, and we are going to pull up our loop and get started. We'll chain one. We're going to actually work over this tail here so we don't have to weave it in later. Okay, we're going to chain one, and we're going to single crochet, and we are going to single crochet in each stitch around the opening. And because that was the final edge of that first triangle, it's really not a problem to see where your stitches are, because that was a live edge that we left. There are lots of different treatment options you can do. You could do a cuff out of crocodile stitch. You could do a post stitch ribbing. You could just go back and forth and make a fold down cuff, which is what we're going to do on this project right here. We're just going to go back and forth and create a fold down cuff. Oh, we have a little, see how we have a little space right here, and that's kind of where our seams happen. So let's take a look at what we can do right there. I think that what we're going to do is we're going to grab an extra thread from here in there and kind of make, there we go. I think that's going to make it, oh, wait a minute, there we go. There we go. Let's actually make a single crochet. There we go. That's better. And then another one right there. And then we're going to leave that center front right here unworked. And we're going to chain 1, 2, turn, and just like we did in, we were doing our increases for our squares and triangles, chain 2, and then we're going to single crochet in the first chain from the hook, and we're going to single crochet down. This one we're going to kind of eyeball just a little bit. You can count your stitches and make it really precise if you like, or you can kind of eyeball it, and that would be just fine. So we're going to come around and fold here. So there is my center back. And I want to do one more, and this is approximately my center back, and I'm going to put 2 stitches in this one, and then I'm going to continue around the cuff until I get back to that center front right there where I started. And then we're going to do that little bump right there that makes the that we used for the turning, that was the turning chain. We're going to just insert our hook in there, so that way we're getting one. Oh, I always forget to finish that last single crochet. All right, now we're going to go into that last bump. So we're increasing 1 on that round. I'm going to pull up my loop so we can see kind of what this looks like, and you can see how that's coming out this way a little bit on both sides. And when we fold this over, you're going to end up with a cute little cuff. We're going to do a couple more rows just like that. There's a lot. You need to trust yourself with this project and understand that this is a formula. It is not an actual pattern. You need to trust your instincts. Okay, there's our turning chain bump. And we're going to just insert our hook in there. Sometimes that can be a little fidgety. I'm going to grab it with my fingernail and wriggle through and then make my last one. You need to trust your instincts and don't be afraid to try something and have to take it out until it is what you want it to be. Okay, yeah, that's what I want this one to look like, just like that. And then I could put right here, I could put a little bow or a little flower or something right there. So we're going to go ahead and finish this off. I don't like to put a knot here, so what we're going to do is just going to cut a nice tail. We've got where we pulled our loop up, and we're just going to pull that yarn all the way through. And then when I go to weave that in, I'm going to make sure that I go around this last loop right here. I'll just show you that right now so you can see how that works. You don't have to have a knot. So what we're going to do, there's that last loop we made, and I'm going to go under it, and I'm going to pierce through the very yarn that I have on my darning needle, and I'm going to just weave it in, and I'm going to kind of go along these back bumps right here, right into the core of the yarn and into the core of the stitches. And we're going to come out on the underside of our little cuff. Now when you see, this is where we finished off right here. So you're going to watch how that's going to just snug down and make sure it's not pulling. Keep kind of massage that into place. There we go. I'm going to hold that stitch so I don't pull it too tight, and see how that just works. And then we're going to, that's where my yarn came out right here, and so we're going to skip over a couple of fibers up into here and go back just a little bit, an inch or so, and pull that on through and trim it off. Give it a little massage, make sure that cut end goes to the inside. There we go. And that is how we did that little slipper. This slip, you can make this with any kind of yarn. This is worsted weight, but you could use crochet thread or big bulky yarns. You can make this with any size foot. This is a little tiny baby foot, this is about a 4-inch slipper. I'll show you with my tape measure here. Here we go. Actually, this one is a 3.5 inch. A 3.5 inch slipper. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial and that you'll follow us on Facebook. Don't forget to subscribe to this YouTube channel so that you get notified each time we update our offerings on here. So thank you very much. We appreciate your support.